Welcome to the VIP Voice, the ultimate podcast where communication gets a serious upgrade. Hosted by yours truly, Manny Cabo. We'll be diving into tools, tricks, and techniques to level up your speaking game. And it doesn't matter whether you're in front of the mic, crowd, or just having that all-important one-on-one. Every episode brings real, raw, and inspiring stories from pros across all industries who are turning heads, breaking barriers, and showing up as their best selves. All here to help you do the same. So buckle up, because it's time to unleash your voice and make every word count. So let's get into it, and welcome to the VIP Voice. All right, welcome back to another episode with yours truly of the VIP Voice. And guys, I got to tell you one thing, man. I'm extremely excited for this one. But before you dive in, all kidding aside, I really just want to take a moment to say thank you. Seriously, guys, because of you, in all seriousness, we're ranked among the top interview podcasts in the world. And that means everything to me. Your support, your shares, your messages. It all fuels the mission. And you know what that is? Of helping all of you out there find your voice. So from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate all your support. So now, let's talk about our guest today. And if you haven't seen this guy on your screen, seriously, guys, I have to ask, do you live under a rock? Because he's literally been in almost everything. And honestly, that's great for him. Terrible for me, because that means I have way too many streaming subscriptions that I need to get rid of. But I don't want to digress. That's neither here nor there. But here's the real story. Now, this man is the definition of hustle, from high-speed action in Too Fast, Too Furious, and you guys all know that one, to like high-stakes drama in Dexter, which is also one of my favorite shows. And he's played everything from caretakers to criminals, total wild cards. Like I said, he's played them all. And before Hollywood, I want you to try this one on for size, okay? Desert Storm veteran, pro basketball player in Europe, and Navy police officer. So yeah, I think it's safe to say that he knows how to command a room. That's a big duh, right? But here's my favorite part that I really, really want to focus on. That ultimate Hollywood moment. I mean, we are talking to an established actor, right? But 1 minute, he's dealing with a nightmare customer, right, at the Miami transit system. And who doesn't deal with knuckleheads on the transit system anyway? But that's besides the point. The next, his agent calls to tell him, John Singleton, yes, that John, just casted him in Too Fast, Too Furious. So boom, life changed forever. And all you VIP listeners out there, this is a lesson for all of you out there. And this is exactly why I talk about this ad nauseum, why it's so important to always be ready, right? That moment right there, that's the definition of luck. Preparation, meeting opportunity. So all of you listening out there, ask yourself, are you ready to take a phone call like that? Because today, you're about to learn what it takes. So VIPs, get ready for an absolute masterclass in finding your voice, standing out in the most, I would have to say, most competitive industry in the world, and taking control of your destiny. And now it's my absolute pleasure to welcome the one and only Roberto Sanchez. ¿Cómo te va, mi hermano?
¿Qué tal, bro? Like, whoa, that was a hell of an introduction, bro. Damn, I'm ready to go to the gym or do something, bro. I'm hyped.
Did I pump you up?
Yeah,
well,
man.
Dude, you provided your own information. I was really enthralled in reading about you, I have to say. And, you know, I spoke to you earlier about this. We alluded to even before this conversation, before I hit record. You know, it's incredible how mutual relationships, you know, Oscar spoke really, really high, who was the last guest that I had on. So I really want to take the time out to give him a huge shout out, who's, again, another incredible actor. And I have to highlight the power of building relationships, especially in this business. Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
Absolutely, man. Like I had mentioned to you earlier, man, I know Oscar now for about 10 years. And when I first solid actor, but he's also a director.
Yeah.
And I know that when I directed my first film, The Terms of Us, you know, I was a little unsure, you know, about some of the things that I needed to prepare for. So I made sure that I spoke to him and picked his brain, because I mean, he had success with Pretty Rosebud, I think it's called. Yes. And then of course later on we worked on A Man and a Woman. And he's just a great guy. He shares his knowledge. And anytime I get an opportunity to pick his brain, I always take that
He
opportunity.
really is down to earth, man.
Yeah.
You could tell he's one of those guys you could sit there, sip a margarita, and just talk endless hours of heartfelt dialogue.
Oh, yeah.
And he's so transparent about everything. And in a world that we live in where egos and, hey, what can you do for me and all that nonsense, it really is refreshing. So I'm happy. And when he told me about you, I'm like, that's a no-brainer. So I'm so happy to have you on the show, brother.
Oh, thank you, brother. Thank you. Glad to be here.
So listen. So your journey, right, into acting, it really is, right? It's like a masterclass in adaptability. One of my favorite words, by the way. So from serving in the military to playing pro basketball in Europe, then law enforcement, and now we've got Hollywood, right? For the span of what, a better part of 15 plus years, right? Somewhere along the lines, is that right? Yeah. So what skills from those, shall we call them past lives, do you think have given you that edge in the entertainment industry, especially when it comes to commanding your presence and communication? Because you're a big guy, you're very well fit, you're bald, very handsome, by the way, and I'm not saying that because I'm biased. But talk to me about that.
Listen, man, I think that, when you're an actor, I think you can always take from experiences you've had in your life. Have been in the military, having played basketball. By the way, I got to make a correction.
Yeah,
because I know my friends are gonna jump all over me. I played it. I was part of the All Navy team, which was the best players, the enlisted players in the Navy. So I played on that team, and then we would go and play the professional teams in Europe as kind of get to know each other, and America and this and that. So that's how I was able to play in those professional leagues. But it wasn't because I was a professional player, but we were able, and we actually won several games. Back then, the European players were very physical, but they hadn't mastered, the skill set like they have now. Now they're phenomenal. Yeah. So we were there in the early stages of that. But back to your question, man. When you're talking about being prepared for that moment, that's huge. But I got to be honest with you, man, I really wasn't, because in my situation, I think it was somebody seeing something in you that perhaps you didn't see in yourself. I love that. You know what I mean?
Oscar said, not to cut you off, Oscar said the exact same thing. But go ahead, continue. This is interesting.
Interesting. At the time that Too Fast came along, I had been out of the military. At that point, I had been modeling and doing commercials for about 5 or 6 years in Atlanta, and then went back home to Miami to try the Latino market. I was happy doing that. I was working in the train system, so I had a day job where I was making good money, and every once in a while I would book. Of course. Contento. I was happy doing that. And I think it took my agent submitting me. That was my first audition for TV or film ever. So I think she saw something in me. She said, listen, I know you're not really an actor per se, but I think they would love your look. Wow. And I was like, okay, so she submitted my stuff and they liked my look, and they said, okay, we'll see them. She sent me the sides so that I would learn the lines. And I was stupid, really, because she had to literally tell me, listen, memorize the lines that say Roberto. Don't memorize the other person's lines. Because I didn't know. I really didn't know.
Listen, I get it. Of course.
And I went in and I performed, and I guess, again, based probably on my look or something else, they liked it. They brought me back for the callback, and when I walked in, I saw this man sitting there that at the time I didn't know who he was, but I recognized him.
That's hilarious.
And later on, of course, I realized it's John Singleton, but even the audition didn't go well. You know what I mean? Because it's just a scene.
You just opened up a can of worms. How? First of all, I get that you didn't know. I mean, listen, you're new, you're nervous, you're trying to figure this stuff out. So believe it or not, it could be the innocence itself that helps you. But go ahead, talk to me. How the hell did that happen?
And and there's actually something to that, because I think that when you're an actor and you're a trained actor, you understand what you're doing. There's a level of, this is it. This could be the game changer for me. Sure. So that adds a little bit of pressure, a little bit of nervousness, perhaps. Not knowing what the hell I was doing, I wasn't nervous. You know what I'm saying? So I think that covered some of my mistakes,
That's
perhaps.
great. That's great. Yeah. No,
But
I completely get it.
at the callback, I'm not nervous. I don't really understand what the Fast and the Furious franchise really is.
Mm.
You know, they had just done the one and it was successful, but I didn't know what it was going. I didn't know who Paul Walker was. I don't sabía nada. I didn't know nothing.
Wow.
And
You were literally
it
wet
was
behind
just
the ears on this one, man. Holy cow.
literally, bro, literally. I was just so disconnected from film and
Wow.
television and stuff like that. I was just
Okay.
into modeling and commercials, and
All
it
right.
was just a quick scene, bro, where I grabbed the guy, the guy, and I'm telling him to drop the gun, and I'm just yelling,
I remember.
and I do the first take, and John is sitting there like, and he's shaking his head like, and now I start to get a little nervous because I'm like, oh shit, I'm messing this up now. So he says, okay, stop. He says, do you speak Spanish? And I said, yes. Okay, do it in Spanish. Agarré el tipo, oye, tira la pistola, get you and I just start screaming, right?
That's great.
And he's still shaking his head like, no, that's not hitting. And then he says, and this is the best piece of nugget that this man gave me.
Okay.
He said, where are your people from? And I said, well, I'm from Miami and I'm Cuban. And he said, well, I know a lot of Cubans. And man, when them Cubans get mad, they just get crazy.
They just
I don't know what
transform.
happened, bro. A light bulb lit up, un bombillo se prendió, brother. And
Right.
I grabbed the guy. Oye, hijo, esto y lo otro. Una gritería se formó.
Wow.
I mean, spit flying out of my mouth. It was disgusting, bro. The casting director's yelling, cut. I don't hear her because I'm just so caught up in the moment.
Yeah.
And John is sitting there like, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I was like, hype, man. I was like, I never experienced that. I was like, breathing all hard. And I'm like, all right, now what? What do you want me to do now? And then he was like, now get the fuck out. But he said, now get the F out. And I was like, okay, dude, I walked out of there. I don't know what happened. I got transformed into something that I didn't know that I could do. And it took about 6 weeks, but then I got the call, man. And I think it's just an example of, once again, somebody seeing something in you, giving you an opportunity. And if you're not ready, technically, you don't have the skill set, at least emotionally, you're prepared. I was 38 years old, so I had experienced life. So I'm not fazed by too much stuff. So there was a calmness to all this madness. So that was my initial journey into this world of acting.
That's interesting, though. And that's a testament to great directors, because they know what strings they have to pull. They know what triggers to give somebody who they know has the talent, because obviously he saw something in you. And just to be able to reel that out of you is just brilliant. And obviously you responded accordingly. But then again, don't take anything away from you, because there are certain things in life that trigger us, like the loss of my dad, which I just talked about. I think about that for the last role that I did in Brother, and I know you're going to relate to this. I had to delve into the dark night of the soul for some parts, places that you don't want to visit, you don't want to think about, but it requires you to deliver a compelling and real performance. So I'm sure as soon as he said that, you're like, ahora sí, bro. Now you're in your own element, right? So there was an element of comfort that he provided for you. So you're in a safe place where you could just let loose being yourself. And that's pretty brilliant. So kudos to John for that. And then obviously kudos to you for delivering the part the way he wanted it.
That's why John was rest in peace, man. That's why he was one of the greatest directors, man, of all time, because when you look at all the talent that he discovered that are working today, Tyrese, Cole Hauser, just he could spot talent, man. That was the thing that he was good at.
Yeah, that's great, man. So, wow, that's a compelling story, man. I'm glad that you share that. So I appreciate that. That's pretty cool. So being ready certainly is an element, but also being able to adapt, like I just alluded to earlier, is huge. But taking cues also is very, very important, which Oscar and I talked about as well. So now we're talking about establishing your voice, right? On this show, that's all I talk about. That's the impetus behind me hosting this every week and getting, special guests like yourself. So whether that's vocally or physically or through storytelling, like you just did now, you've played everything. Like a lawman, outlaw, caretaker, a criminal. So what's your personal approach to crafting, let's just
let's call it a distinct voice for each role, because you're playing a different role, but it's still you. And has there ever been a time where your natural voice, and this is cool because you almost just answered it, but I want to go a little bit further into this now that you've mentioned that, that it helped you land a role. Like, for example, let's go back, and I was doing some research on your movies, like Lake Los Angeles. That I'm sure hit home for you, especially from a personal standpoint with your Cuban background heritage, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Man, Lake Los Angeles, to this day, I think Lake Los Angeles is one of, if not my favorite project. As far as the role that I played the caretaker of this halfway house.
Yeah.
Where individuals that come in from Mexico, they come to this house and they wait for the American side of family members to pick them up.
Right.
So I'm the guy in charge of this house, and this particular family comes in. 5 people come in, and then 4 of them leave, but the young girl, a 10 or 11-year-old girl, stays behind because nobody comes to get her. Her family doesn't come. So the story revolves around the relationship formed between those, 4 or 5 days between the young girl and myself, the caretaker. And the story is about a young girl coming in, pursuing the American dream, And in my case, I'm a 50-year-old, but never achieved the American dream. So I think it was a beautiful story. It was written by a phenomenal director, Mike Ott. And I used a lot, when you talk about how you prepare for something and our life experiences, I used a lot of what my mom went through. My mom coming to this country with 2 kids and not speaking the language. And she had her own dreams, that she wanted to achieve, especially back in Cuba. But she didn't achieve that. But yet she was able to be there for us and help us achieve our dreams. And so I used a lot of that. And sometimes it can be a little bit too much. You know what I'm saying? Because you're tapping into certain
100%.
recollections or certain memories of a particular thing to motivate you in this particular scene.
Exactly. And that's why I mentioned that. And there's something so beautiful, because as a Hispanic myself, there's something so beautiful how parents have that capacity to live vicariously through our successes, right? And they're willing to sacrifice themselves so easily. But go ahead, man. That's a great point.
No, and it's at times it was difficult. I'll tell you another film that I did that was about my mom. It was The Terms of Us. That was the first film that I directed.
Yes.
That's the one that I went to Oscar for help,
Amazing.
As far as, being a director and the things to look for and this and that.
Of course.
But that was about the search for my mom, who I had not seen for 11 years. And then I finally found her, and I wanted to tell that story of those 3 weeks that I was searching for her. Now, something like that was difficult because, a lot of people felt that, it's going to be good for you to purge and be able to, have some type of closure and this and that. But in reality, it had the opposite effect.
Absolutely.
Because during post-production, I'm reliving those moments over and over. And then it was highly successful in the festival circuit. So now at the Q&As, I'm having to talk about it. And I just can't remember a Q&A where I could get through without crying. So
I get it.
It's one of those life experiences that we tap into occasionally for a role. And sure, you'll have some great performances, but sometimes you wonder, or you don't wonder, at what cost.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because
actually, it's not funny, but people actually think, like, at first glance, you just mentioned that, people think it would be therapeutic. And there is a certain degree of validity to that. I get it. Because the more I talk about my dad, the less the impact is. But the pain, like I tell everybody, it's all bullshit. The pain will never go away. And I don't want it to go away because I want that constant reminder. But when you're working and you have to relive those pains for a week, 2, 3, 4 weeks, it can certainly take a toll on you. I had to do it for a couple of hours. I can't imagine how this impending depression and sadness and frustration must have, overcome you on the set for such a long period of time.
Yeah, man, it was definitely a challenge, and a challenge that, I still deal with today, so many years later.
Yeah.
But I will take something from that experience that I think brings me peace is that at the festivals, when people saw the movies, they would come up to me afterwards and they would say, "Hey, man, thank you for your film. And you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call my brother.
Love it.
I
Yeah.
haven't spoken to him in years, or I'm going to call my dad who I haven't spoken to in months." So when I saw the effect that the film had on people, I knew that I had it. It wasn't about the awards. It wasn't about none of that. It was just about, I'm hoping people don't make the mistakes that I made that I can't take back. And sure enough, man, that's the type of
Yeah.
reception that I
You
received.
did. You served your community outside of the limitations of what entertainment is. You serve them on a personal level, and it's so fulfilling, right? I know it's fulfilling for me. It really, really is. So, listen, man, kudos for having the chutzpah, as they would say, to really follow through. But as you can see, that pain helped you deliver an outstanding performance, and the accolades are pretty evident. And through pain and through contrast in life, I've realized that clarity is always revealed to us, and sometimes we have to go through that to shine, to grow, to develop, and to inspire, of course. So that's a great story, brother. So going into the next section now. So we both know that Hollywood is, what's a word I could use? Saturated with talent, right? Just like yourself. And yet you personally have managed to carve out a space where you're constantly working. I have to address this because you really are. And that's what every artist aspires for. All aspiring artists out there are trying to get noticed at the end of the day. So what's the key, in your opinion, through your lens, is standing out, not just in terms of auditions, but in making sure that your presence is felt in a room where you walk into? Can you give us some solid advice, man? I know it's a tough one, but I know somebody like you who's so versatile, and I appreciate your background because of that. And that's specifically why I targeted you with this question, because it's a loaded one, but I know that you're going to answer it in a way that I want all my listeners to adapt to.
I think that what worked for me was that every time I would walk into a room, I was always wondering, what is it that they're looking for?
Yeah.
I see what's written, but I'm like, what do they want? What do they want? And you really don't know, because a lot of times they don't know. You know what I mean? So, but that sometimes can consume an actor, in that they're trying to figure out, man, I hope they like me. I hope that I gave them what they wanted. But it wasn't until I changed that, because I was putting too much pressure on myself. I changed it to, you know what? I'm going to come in today for this audition, and I'm going to show you my interpretation of this. I'm going to show you what I would do with this. Now, you do what you want, but this is how Roberto is going to do this.
Right.
And when you do that, you eliminate that pressure of not knowing what they want and all of that stuff. You're like, no, bro, this is my interpretation.
Right.
And a lot of times they didn't even think of that. I've seen situations where I came in with sometimes you're outside of the audition room and you can kind of hear the other actors that are in there. And I can tell you that I remember going into one particular audition where I gave a completely different read than what I had heard the previous 3 or 4 guys. I didn't book it. But when I saw it on television, when they aired the episode with the actor that booked it, they used the lines that I used in that particular audition, because you never want to try to change too much of the dialogue, but every once in a while there's a word or two that I'll change just because it works for me, and I've been able to get away with it. And they actually inserted that into the final thing that you see on television. So that goes to show you that sometimes they don't really know what they're looking for. They're open to interpretations. So I think that as an actor, when you make it about, this is how I would do it. When you make it about that, it's going to be more organic, more honest, and you're going to feel good about it, as opposed to walking into that room and they sense the desperation. They sense I'm frustrated. I sat in traffic for 2 hours. I got bills to pay. My kids, get to the otro. It's a lot, man.
That's
and I
the
think
word.
that
you nailed it, though. That's the word, desperation. Exactly.
That they sense that. And for me, once I developed that, and once I really started to look at auditions almost as an interruption in my day, as opposed to the highlight of my day. The highlight of my day was going to the gym and doing chest and triceps. That was my highlight. But I got to do this audition first. Psychologically, I took away that thing that it was doing
The
to me.
intensity, yeah. You
Intensity.
disarmed the intensity. That's brilliant. Yeah.
And they see that. And the same way they see the desperation and they sense it, they also see the calmness and the self-assuredness and the confidence when, you just go in and say, hey guys, how you doing?
Yeah.
Let me show you what I would do with this. Hey, see you guys later. Boom. I started booking a lot after that. So that is what worked for me.
That's great. And not only that, but you also inspired them in put it this way, in altering the execution of that part, because they may have had a totally different intention on it, but obviously
Sure.
you've influenced that. So that's pretty badass because you walked in there. And see, that's exactly why I targeted you for that question, because there are so many little tips and tricks and techniques. And obviously you've taken acting classes, you've done these major roles, and on every piece of set, the one piece of advice that I know that I've always walked away from is very similar to that. Just go in there like it's a part of your daily routine. The moment you start tackling something like it's do or die, then you are literally subjecting yourself to unnecessary pressure that's only going to deter you and deter anyone else from thinking that you're ready for the part. You start questioning your own abilities. You just get into this dark place. So I'm glad that you actually mentioned that. That's brilliant.
Brother, it got to a point, and it's funny because I can look back now and see that. I'm a military guy, so I believe in being prepared and all these things.
Yeah.
Dude, when I would find out, what's today, Thursday, I find out that I have an audition on Monday. Nothing else is taking place from now until Monday except me learning these lines and working on this and canceling everything. And that's how I was.
Yeah.
Now, bro, to be honest with you, I get it today. I'll read it one time and I'm like, all right, cool. And that's it. I won't pick it up again until Sunday night. Look it over a few times, and that's it. I just won't consume my life with it. Yeah. And again, I'm not trying to say it's not important because it's very important to me, but I've noticed that the less pressure you put on yourself, man, and the more you just enjoy this journey, you're going to have success. And also, you have to be in it for the long run. If you coming into this saying, in about a year, man, I'm going to be this and that, and it doesn't happen in a year, you get all discouraged and you want to talk bad about the business, you quit. Nah, brother, you got to be in it however long it takes. What if I'm a big Bruce Lee fan. Last thing, I'm a big Bruce Lee fan.
Oh, I know you are, man. I saw your collection. It's ridiculous, but go ahead.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. And he used to write a lot of letters. And there's a letter that he wrote that was being auctioned years ago. And I wanted to get it, man, but it was just too much money. My wife was side-eyeing me and she was like, no, you're not. But this letter he wrote to a friend of his after the Green Hornet, and after the Kung Fu series, which was written for him, they gave it to Derek Carradine, a white guy. So you can imagine the level of disrespect that he felt. So he decides to go back to China. And he writes this letter to a friend of his, basically saying, hey, man, I'm done with this business. I'm tired of it. It's all BS. And this and that. Very discouraged, man, Sure. And he says, I'm going to go back to China. And there's a guy there that wants to put me in one of his little movies, but I'm done with Hollywood, this and that. He wrote this letter not knowing what was going to happen. And 2 weeks after he wrote this letter, basically saying that he was done with Hollywood, he exploded into what was to become an international mega star. And I wanted that letter because it was just a reminder of someone who wants to quit, not knowing that the very next day or the very next week, your life can change, man. So you got to be in it. You got to be in it for the long haul.
Yeah. The journey is important. It's funny. I say that all the time on so many episodes, guys. All it takes is one more post, one more video, one more interview. But above all, you got to believe. And when I was on The Voice and all the TV shows that I've been gratefully accepted on, I remember, and this is why I do what I do, is because my voice, it wasn't about the singing. It wasn't about any of that. Sure, I was there to perform naturally, but I gained this incredible fulfillment from inspiring people. And the one thing I remember looking back in the hotel room, I've got like 20, 30 of the contestants, kids with their parents. And I'm telling them, guys, you got it all wrong. You stop focusing on the 90 seconds that you're going to perform because you're missing all of this. You're missing the connections. You're missing the knowledge. You're missing the memories. You do the work now. I'm not saying don't do the work. You have to do the work because you got to be prepared. But in the interim of all that, embrace the journey, because then when you perform, you're going to take all of that, right? Cumulative knowledge and experience that you've gained, and you're going to deliver that much more of a flawless performance, which is so true. And having that nonchalant attitude will certainly serve you, because it does. It disarms all the unnecessary pressure that we give ourselves, man. So kudos to you, man. I appreciate that, because I know a lot of listeners are going to be like, there's no way, really? How can he just go into an audition and just say, I looked it over a couple of times? But when you do it a couple of times, then you start realizing, yeah, man, I was putting so much goddamn unnecessary pressure on myself. This is fun. Yeah, it's fun, man.
And that is the tricky part, man, because with a lot of young actors, I don't want to give them the wrong impression. I take it 1,000% serious, but I also know what works for me and what works in the room. And another thing too is I've been at this now 23 years, so I am also. I should have said this from the beginning. I'm also very good at memorizing things once I see it once or twice. So that helps a lot. That I don't have to study it. And I think that sometimes when you study something too much, man, you get caught up with performing it a certain way. And then if you get in that room and they give you direction to try it a different way, I've seen a lot of actors blow it because they were so consumed with doing it this way. So for me, it just keeps me free. It keeps me loose. And I don't put that pressure on myself. And also another thing for me was when I would go into that room, it was really no longer about getting this job per se. My goal is that you like me enough to where you will continue to bring me back into this office, because your time will come. And you can tell when you're doing a good job, guys, when you don't book it, but that same casting office brings you back. That means that they loved what you did the last time. It's just for whatever reason, you were too tall, too short, too skinny, too fat. Things that have nothing to do with your performance, but they loved your performance. You didn't embarrass them in front of the producers, and they're like, yo, your time is coming, so here we go, come back. So that's what I started to go for.
It's so true. And what I gained from that, just so everybody's clear, is don't take anything personal, because you're so right. You may have not you knew the lines inside out from here to next Wednesday, but because you didn't have the scar on your left nostril like the other guy did, and that's what they were looking for, they gave the part to the other guy. Right?
Brother, I'll give you one better. I'll give you one better.
Please.
Years ago, I auditioned for something, and it was a good audition, solid audition. And as soon as that was done, you know, they gave me some feedback. But one lady said that I looked like her ex-husband. Bro, I walked out. I was like, I'm done. I'm not getting this job. I'm not getting this. So it's got nothing to do with your performance a lot of the times. It's the things that are beyond your control, man.
You got blacklisted before you walked in. Jesus.
Yeah. I'm like, I wish you would have told me that when I walked into the room, so I would have saved these 3 minutes, you know.
Exactly. So listen, man. Oh, God. Roberto, you've had an incredible career, right? So now you get this Hollywood moment. I have to go back to this because I love these serendipitous stories, right? You get that life-changing call, right? While dealing with something that obviously could have deterred you, a difficult customer. It happens all the time. We get distracted from day in and day out, right? So looking back at that, right, what would you say to people that are like myself, like all of us out there in this industry, that are grinding away at their day jobs, waiting for their own big break? Like, how do they keep their voices strong and their confidence up, even when they're not seen like you are?
That man, that's a good one there. I think you have to truly believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, and I think you know, you need to stop. This is something that I see too many actors do. You need to stop sitting, waiting by the phone.
Mm-hmm.
You got to stop it, man. You got to stop it. Nowadays, because of technology, you know, pick up a phone. Hey, you're taking classes in directing, right? You know how to write, right? Why don't you write something? You direct it, and my uncle and I are going to be we're going to shoot something. We're going to shoot it with our cell phones, and we're going to learn, and we're going to practice, and hopefully it's good enough to where maybe we can submit it into a film festival, and maybe it can do something. You have to stay active. And by active, it can mean what I just said, or just hopefully getting the auditions. And don't think of the end result as I'm a successful actor. It's about the journey. It's about the auditioning. It's about the getting in front of strangers and performing. And then all these other little things that I'm talking about. I think that ultimately you have to do all of that if you really love this. And I'm gonna tell you, if you really don't love this, listen, bro, I want to tell you, don't waste your time.
Dude, I know you nailed it. You nailed it. I tried to discourage people from going into the music industry because
you want to be an actor,
right?
Don't. If you can find something else to do because it's extremely difficult. But if you love it,
exactly.
If you'll do anything for it, if you have to sleep in your car, you'll do that the day before an audition. If that's the kind of person that you are, when it comes to this, then do it, and success will come. It ain't gonna come when you think it should come, but if you stay in it long enough, you do the work, you train, you read everything you can, you practice with your friends, you do all these things, I promise you, your time will come. Promise you.
You get no argument from me, man. I just posted a reel. I know you'd appreciate it. It's called "What the Fuck Is Your Excuse?" That's all I'm going to say when you watch that reel. It basically epitomizes and just summarizes everything that you just said, dude. What an amazing conversation this has been. Seriously, huge thank you to you, Roberto. I appreciate you, man. I really have nothing but love for you for dropping so much wisdom, man, and sharing your journeys, your vulnerability. And again, proving that hustle and preparation and passion and living in the moment, I can't forget that one, are truly what sets you apart, man. But so now, listen, before we go, do me a favor, let us know how we can communicate with you. And even in addition to that, if people listening out there, if you've got at least one takeaway, one valuable nugget from this episode, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review the show. Your support, guys, your support is what keeps us in the top percentile of the best interview podcasts in the world. And I can't do this shit without you. I can't do it with people like Roberto. So please tell us how we can stay connected with you, Roberto, how we can find about your world, what you're doing. By the way, I loved your latest series, man. Kate is funny as shit in that series. What a great cast. And you play the perfect part, this really, important, imperious owner. But go ahead. I don't want to spoil it. I want people to go out and check it out. Go ahead. Talk to me.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Please see Running Point. And also, we just finished our second season of Palm Royale.
Yes.
With, Kristen Wiig, Ricky Martin, Carol Burnett, Allison Janney, tremendous cast.
Yeah.
But no, man, you can you can follow me on Instagram, official Roberto Sanchez, and I'm still on MySpace, bro. I think I'm the only one on MySpace, but hey, I'm not giving up on MySpace, man. I think MySpace is going to make a comeback one day. I'm the only one, but hey,
dude, you gotta believe. You're one of those believers, man. You just mentioned that.
That's right, bro. Hey, I know, man. I'm like, nobody's contacted me on MySpace. I mean, it's nobody's like, I don't have any friends on there. It's like, but I'm not giving up. Man.
That's great. Listen, man, like I always say, I appreciate you. People, stay bold, stay creative, and find your voice. But more importantly, cultivate it and own it. As always, much love and peace, and live to inspire. Roberto, got nothing but love for you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, brother. This was fun. Thank you.
We got to do it again. Take care, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to the VIP Voice podcast. If today's episode resonated, we'd love for you to leave a quick review. It really helps spread the word. And if you're a speaker, entertainer, entrepreneur, or industry professional with a story to share, we're always on the lookout for inspiring guests who align with our mission. So drop us a message at info@mannycabo.com. Let's keep building a community of powerful voices. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.